Why is it so hard to change? Have you ever tried to change something about yourself, but found it to be almost impossible? Or maybe you changed for a little bit and then you, boom, almost immediately reverted back to your old patterns and habits and ways of being. If you feel like you're just not able to break free and create meaningful, long-lasting, permanent changes in your life, you're not alone. Changing our behavior, it can be very, very challenging for a variety of reasons, including negative social conditioning, the human tendency to maintain homeostasis, and the presence of success barriers. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some very effective strategies for creating that lasting, deep identity level change. And by the end of this, you're going to have a better understanding of, number one, why change is difficult, and number two, more importantly, how to overcome these obstacles and create the life that you actually want. The number one reason it's hard to change is the good old boogeyman, negative social conditioning. Now, changing our behavior permanently, it's hard because it requires us to challenge, confront, and overcome a very wide range of ingrained habits that are a result of negative social conditioning. We're exposed to a wide range of cultural and societal norms that shape our perception of ourselves, our perception of other people, and our perceptions of the world at large. And these social conditionings, and there's a lot of them, just to name a few, are judgmentalism, dependency, defensiveness, negativism, perfectionism, frozen feelings, confusion, scarcity. All of these things can very significantly impact our ability to create meaningful change in our lives. Judgmentalism. This is the granddaddy of them all, pretty much. And this is a very, very common social conditioning that teaches us to evaluate ourselves and other people based on unrealistic and very often unattainable standards. Again, it's this addictive need to judge other people as well as be judged by others. We have an addictive need to be judged by others. Ultimately, this can lead to feelings of inadequacy, low self-esteem, and this makes it very difficult for us to make positive changes in our lives. Dependency, on the other hand, is a belief that we need other people or external factors to achieve happiness and success. So one thing that I'm always trying to combat on my programs is so-called authority dependence. I really believe that authority dependence is one of the biggest single factors that robs a person of their personal power. So back in the day when I first started doing programs, we call them the boot camps, and I really leaned on that drill instructor personality. Put a foot in their ass and, break them down to build them back up. And I think that looking back, in large part, I did that because I was 26 years old. I was coaching people who were much older than me in a lot of cases, more well off financially, more just accomplished in general. And so I used that to, again, kind of compensate for my own feelings of inadequacy. Like I knew this one thing really well, but, so I leaned on that. Now, to be fair, some people, they like that. They need the foot in the ass and it motivates them. But other people, it's really not particularly motivating to them. And in fact, it can be counterproductive because socializing in particular is dependent, it's contingent upon you actually enjoying the process and having fun. Whatever you feel, they feel. And if you're not having fun socializing, they're not going to have fun either. And they're going to be like, get the fuck away from me. And one thing I learned is you can't bully somebody into having fun. The drill instructor can't bully you into partying. So, and then beyond that, it's like, okay, well, even if the drill instructor can push you to go, what's going to happen after the program ends and concludes? When I'm no longer there to put that foot in your ass, are you going to be able to do it under your own power? Do you need to hand over your sense of self-worth to this external referent who then tells you what to do with yourself? So again, dependency can lead to a lack of self-reliance, a lack of motivation, and this makes it very difficult to take ownership of our lives and make meaningful changes. Defensiveness, this is another social conditioning that can impede behavior change. When we feel attacked or we feel criticized, we often respond with defensiveness, and that can prevent us from being open to feedback and new ideas. This can make it very difficult to learn from our mistakes and make positive changes. Particularly when I work with older people, like, not to put like a strict timeline on it, but generally people who are kind of in their late 30s or older, if I try to give them feedback, particularly with dating, which is so prone to defensiveness because it's so results oriented. It's like if they liked it, it worked. If they didn't like it, it didn't work. So if I tell someone what you're doing is wrong, they'll very often defend this as some sort of, rationalize it and defend it as some sort of choice they're making. So rather than provide criticism, I don't like to say criticism anymore. Rather now I make observations. I make descriptive observations. Like, I notice that you're making a choice to do this. In my experience, doing this tends to get a better result. You might want to try this, to avoid triggering that defensiveness, which again can prevent you from accepting what you're doing wrong, or accepting where you're doing something that might not be the best, let's just say. It can prevent you from accepting your mistakes and making positive change. Similarly, negativity is a social conditioning that teaches us to focus on the negative aspects of our lives, leading to a lack of motivation and a sense of hopelessness, particularly like in academia, or even on the internet for that matter. It's like, there's a tendency to just pick apart anything. Like, look for the holes in the argument, look for where they're failing, not to focus on the good things and celebrate those, but for look at what they're doing wrong or what they're saying wrong and pick that apart. Even from a creator standpoint, like when you read the comments, you're more likely to respond to the negative comment than the guy that's like, this was amazing and helped me so much. But the guy rather that's like, well, this I disagree with. I'll like sit down there and I'll feel this tendency to want to write like 5 paragraphs explaining it to this person, where there's like 100 comments that are like, amazing, helped me so much, thank you, right? So again, negativism. Perfectionism, it's another social conditioning that can hinder behavior change. When you set unrealistic and unattainable standards for yourself, you can very often feel discouraged and give up on your goals. A really common one, frozen feelings. This is generally a tendency that I see in a lot of people to suppress their emotions. This can make it difficult to change your behavior. By not acknowledging and processing your feelings, you might continue to engage in behaviors that aren't serving you. And again, from a very young age, we're taught to be careful with our uses of energy, be very careful with the emotions, repress them. Sit down, don't run around in the public place, shut up, don't make noise in the restaurant, this, that, the next thing. It's like, as soon as the impulse to express an emotion comes up, for many people, the impulse to repress it comes up immediately. These might as well be the same event insofar as the relationship and time is concerned. It's like desire to express comes up, tamp it the fuck down. The problem with this, it's not like that emotion goes away when you tamp it down. It's not expressed, but perhaps it's transformed into something more destructive. And again, by not acknowledging our feelings, this can make it difficult to change. Confusion. This is another social conditioning that can stop you from changing your behavior. Look, there's nobody more controllable than a confused person. And again, the system, whatever the system is like an entity of a self-perpetuating entity. It's not like some mustache-twirling cabal of villains. And again, I'll get more into these, I can go into more depth on these negative social conditions in a separate video. But again, I don't think there's some people might benefit from social conditioning, but I don't think that there's like a cabal of mustache-twirling villains that's decided, these are the conditionings we're going to put out there. I think it's just sort of arisen as a result of industrial society, a number of other things. But again, that's beside the point. But again, there's nobody more controllable than a confused person. If you spend all your time trying to figure out what's going on, that does not leave a lot of energy left over to actually make change. When we feel overwhelmed, we feel uncertain, it kind of can paralyze you and you'll struggle to take action and make positive changes. Finally, scarcity is a social conditioning that can make it very difficult to change behavior. When we have a belief that resources, opportunities, time, money, good interactions, all of these things, attractive people are limited, we might feel discouraged and give up on our goals. So by recognizing these conditionings and working to overcome them, you can create more meaningful and positive changes in your life. And this might include or involve seeking out support. I'm here for you, okay? Practicing self-compassion. Again, I think that most people don't give themselves enough credit and they're very hard on themselves. But for example, one thing I hear a lot is like, Jeff, if I'm trying to get better, how can I accept myself as I am now? Isn't that sort of a paradox? Like, I'm trying to get better. How do I accept myself now and say I am enough right now? Again, the analogy I always like to use is that of a child. Like, say you have a 5-year-old kid. Is that kid imperfect because they can't do all the things that a 25-year-old can? And of course, in the comments, I'll be, fuck them kids. No, they suck. but no, of course not. It's just they're at a different stage in their development. So you've got to honor that. So the best way to ensure that that kid becomes a healthy, functioning 25-year-old is to love them and accept them as they are in the moment and encourage their growth. So, you just got to be open to new perspectives, practice self-compassion. And again, seek out support structures. Ultimately, the ability to change your behavior is in your control, but it requires a willingness to let go of these ingrained patterns and just develop, number one, an awareness of how your conditioning is preventing you from behaving in the ways that would get you that change. The second big thing that prevents meaningful, lasting change is the human tendency to maintain homeostasis and the presence of success barriers that result in large part from the so-called reptilian brain. If you ever heard of the theory of the triune brain, it's like there's the human brain, which is like the cortex, there's the monkey brain, which is like the emotional midbrain, and then there's the lizard brain, which is the kind of the brain stem, the most core, most primitive area of the brain, and that's only concerned with survival in an utterly ruthless fashion. All that it knows is that what you're doing hasn't gotten you killed yet. And as such, it's highly resistant to change. Homeostasis is the tendency of the body to maintain a stable, constant internal environment. And yes, this is critical for our survival, but it can also make changing your behavior very, very difficult. When you try to change your behavior, you're disrupting that equilibrium. You're disrupting the equilibrium of your body and your brain, and this can create a sense of like severe discomfort and stress. And the body and brain respond to this stress by resisting that change and trying to maintain homeostasis. This resistance can take many forms, including procrastination, self-sabotage, avoidance. Just look at it. Look at a situation where you're out and you want to meet somebody, say at a party. You see the person there, you know that you want to mingle. You're like, yeah, there's nothing's going to happen. But again, your lizard brain, it wants proof, not promises. Proof. Give me the proof that it's going to be okay. Don't give me these little promises. And then furthermore, it's like, I feel fine right now. If I go talk to these people, I might not feel fine. So again, it results in procrastination and avoidance behaviors. Now, similarly, success barriers are another factor that contribute to the difficulty of making lasting change. Success barriers can take many forms, including fear of failure, lack of motivation, and in a very unlikely turn of events, fear of success. Actually, I think more success barriers come from a fear of success. And you might be like, well, why would I fear success? Well, the fact of the matter is, if you actually did succeed, you'd have to deal with a new level of complexity in whatever arena you succeeded in. So, for example, if people say, oh, if I made $1 million, that sounds great on paper. But if you actually did that, let's really think about what that would entail. You would have to, you're in a new income bracket now. You'd have to figure out like all kinds of things like tax shelters and all of this other complicated stuff. You might become a target for scams. You might become a target for lawsuits. You might become a target for a robbery. If you got, you started to date somebody who you might consider out of your league, now you might have to deal with all kinds of weird jealousy issues, other people hitting on them, this, that, the next thing. So again, your brain wants to maintain that homeostasis so you do not have to deal with that new level of complexity. So to overcome this resistance to change, we first got to understand how the lizard brain works and what triggers these success barriers. One of the most effective strategies is to simply take small incremental steps towards the desired change. Again, provide proof, not promises. Like it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. Give it proof. So for example, if I'm going out with my clients on a live program, I'll tell them as soon as you enter the venue, you must speak to someone. You have like 30 seconds before the tension grabs hold of you. I don't care if you speak to some old person, an old lady, an old dude, some old fucking person. Some of you have no stake in caring about the outcome, and just simply have a 30-second conversation with them. That's all. Because what are you doing there? You're giving that lizard brain the proof it needs, and also the so-called monkey brain that believes that social humiliation equals death. Like, you give it the proof. Like, okay, I just talked to somebody for 30 seconds and they didn't assault me or ridicule me. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't cast out of the tribe to fend for myself on the ancient savannah to be consumed by a saber-toothed tiger or succumb to the elements, right? It's like, okay, I'm still here. Usually for me, look, even as a 20-year veteran, sometimes when I go out, I'll feel that initial resistance to do that first approach, to talk to the first person. Because why? It's like getting out of bed in the morning. It's homeostasis. I am not scared to get out of bed in the morning. It's just comfortable. I know that if I get out of bed, it's like, 10 degrees colder outside of the bed. I'll have to deal with vague discomfort for like 45 seconds. So there's that powerful resistance. Same thing in the club. I know what's going to happen. But usually for me, after that very first interaction, that quick interaction, or maybe the second, but typically the first. I'm like, oh yeah, right. I'm hilarious and awesome. What was I thinking? Da, da, da. And then it's time to terrorize, right? Time to rage, time to go beast mode. So by doing this, you're allowing that lizard brain to adjust gradually to the situation. It reduces that sense of discomfort and that sense of stress. And again, it helps you move towards the desired change. This helps to rewire the brain and create new neural pathways that are going to support the new behavior. Again, you've got to identify these success barriers first. You've got to identify them and then work to address them. As I'm always saying throughout all my work, particularly with the charisma mastery stuff, my charisma mentoring program, it's all about awareness. Without shame, without guilt, because that's what caused most of these problems in the first place, but you develop awareness first. So for example, if fear of ridicule or fear of failure is a success barrier, you can reframe your mindset to see those rejections, to see that failure as reference experiences and opportunities for growth and learning, right? Look, I've probably approached 30,000 strangers over the past 20 years. Out of that, like 30,000, how many actually resulted in like success in the night, like real end zone success? I don't know, like 400. That's not a good batting average, right? But here's the thing. I viewed every interaction, I still continue to view every interaction as additional data for the like every interaction, whether it's a good one, a bad one, somewhere in between, it's another data point for me to add to my data set so that I can extrapolate information out of it. I can start to see patterns emerge about what styles of communication work better, what styles don't, and again, develop sort of enough familiarity with the technique that I no longer need to pay much attention to it anymore when I'm going out. It's just, again, it's no longer something I do, it's just who I am. So again, you've got to reframe your mindset to see a rejection, to see failure as an opportunity for growth. Look, all learning, all growth is movement into the unknown. And you got to change your relationship with that uncertainty. By addressing these barriers, you're going to create a more supportive and encouraging internal environment for behavior change. Now, reason number three why it's so hard to change, you're attempting to untangle various tension blocks that lie below your threshold of awareness. Like I said, so much of this stuff that I do, it's just about teasing those out and dragging those tension blocks from the darkness of your subconscious, kicking and screaming into the light. Why are they in your subconscious? Again, these interference and control patterns are things that you have been doing for so long. You've deemed these to be necessary and useful for your protection, so to speak, for so long that you can no longer even consciously perceive them without a concerted effort to shine a light on them. Look, what you think of as your natural ways of being and your natural uses of energy are in fact all deeply affected by the habits and conditionings that you've been practicing unconsciously our whole lives. Once we know that, once you come to that understanding, you come to that realization, now you have a new freedom with respect to what you can become. At that point, you're no longer this helpless victim of your history. You can start practicing new patterns of your own choice and take charge of the development of your interpersonal expressive power. But it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's going to take persistence. Just because you intellectually realize that it would be beneficial for you to maybe, be more facially free or express yourself in a different way, you're not going to suddenly drop decades of social conditioning just because you intellectually understand that. So it's important to persist. If you really want to take charge of your social life and get all of this handled once and for all so you never have to think about it ever again, and you can start focusing on other areas of your life, and it's not this nagging refrigerator hum in the back of your mind, you're like, that's handled. If you want to handle this once and for all, I invite you to quit screwing around and make the decision to join my charisma mentoring program or come with me on a live program. I've been running these programs with great success for over 20 years. Literally over 20 years. My first program was in January 2003. So I can teach you how to actually attain that deep identity level change, to get true core confidence, where it's no longer something that you're doing, but it's simply who you are, and give you real social skills that you can use that are going to enable you to do the kind of stuff that's only possible in the movies. In other words, you're going to be able to attract the kind of relationships, the kind of opportunities you want in pretty much any social situation you can conceive of. So you'll find the link in the description for that. Check it out down below. Don't settle for a mediocre social life or a mediocre career. Take action now and start building the life that you actually want. It's your boy, Jeffy, and I'll see you next time. Jeffy. This program is designed to give you a process to open and sustain charismatic expression with increasing consistency. Remove the obstacles, isolate the skills, exercise them separately, then put them together in a more completely realized whole. How to speak to all the issues surrounding this interrelationship between intuitive and intellectual resources is arguably the most fundamental challenge facing anyone who's attempting to improve their communication skills.
So if you're looking to develop general charisma that you can apply across all areas of life, definitely check out Jeff's Charisma Mastery.